Recently, Bernie Sanders did an interview with ABC, ABC's This Week, and they discussed a myriad of things, everything from his health issue, health scare, whatever, and just general stuff happening on the campaign trail. But there was one specific issue that was broached, and that was the differences between Bernie Sanders himself and his rival and friend Elizabeth Warren. So he answered some questions that was asked of the interviewer here, and then I found them very interesting, and a lot of other people also found that very interesting. So I want to play that for you guys here, so we can discuss it. So check out this clip, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
So let me ask you. You and Elizabeth Warren have pretty close to identical positions on the big issues. What do you say to those who say that they would pick her because she's 8 years younger than you? She didn't just come through this, didn't just have a heart attack. And look, in the positions, you're pretty much the same.
Well, look, every American is going to make his or her own choice about the candidate that they want. And Elizabeth Warren has been a friend of mine for some 25 years. And I think she is a very, very good senator. But there are differences between Elizabeth and myself. Elizabeth, I think, as you know, has said that she is a capitalist through her bones. I'm not. I think the situation today that we face in this country of the greed and the corruption that is existing in Washington, that is existing at the corporate elite level, where you have massive amounts of price fixing going on in the drug companies, where we're the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, where we have right now, as we speak, in the fossil fuel industry, you got companies making billions of dollars a year in profit, doing what? Oh, by the way, they're destroying the planet, all right? And I think business as usual and doing it the old-fashioned way is not good enough. It's not regulation. Now, what we need is, in fact, I don't want to get people too nervous, we need a political revolution. I am, I believe, the only candidate who's going to say to the ruling class of this country, the corporate elite, enough with your greed and with your corruption. We need real change in this country.
So you don't think that's what Elizabeth Warren
said? Well, look, Elizabeth is a friend of mine. She will speak for herself. I've just told you what I view.
But you have said there are differences, and you just mentioned a label.
Well, it's not a label. I mean, Elizabeth considers herself, if I got the quote correctly, to be a capitalist to her bones. I don't. And the reason I am not is because I will not tolerate for 1 second the kind of greed and corruption and income and wealth inequality and so much suffering that is going on in this country today, which is unnecessary.
She's built her campaign about having a plan for everything, but she hasn't put out a health care plan yet.
Again, Elizabeth is a friend of mine. Talk to her. I have put out a health care plan. It's called Medicare-for-all. We're going to tell the insurance companies and the drug companies that we will not continue this current dysfunctional and cruel system.
So that was, in my opinion, that was perfect. Bernie Sanders didn't stray away from stating the obvious, and he wasn't lying, he didn't smear, he didn't have to make anything up. That was just straight up just saying, this is the differences between myself and my friend Elizabeth Warren. And she does call herself a capitalist to her bones. That's absolutely true. So let's get into a little bit of the specifics here. So Jonathan Karl, the interviewer, he says that a lot of people seem to believe that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have, quote, pretty close to identical positions on big issues. And some would say they would choose her because she is younger and healthier than him. Now, those people that think like that, honestly, I mean, first of all, they do not have identical positions. All she does is grift off of his ideas, say that I support getting rid of X amount of student loan debt, whereas hers turns out to be like 600 or 700 billion. Bernie Sanders is 1.6 trillion. So there's a big difference there. And then when you ask her about Medicare-for-all, do you support Medicare-for-all? I support different paths to Medicare-for-all. Okay, that's a problem because you don't truly believe in the system, in the fact that the system, the healthcare system specifically, and as we said in the last segment, the capitalist system screwing people over when it comes to healthcare. And the only thing that can nip that in the bud and put an end to that capitalist system screwing people over is Medicare for all, single payer type system. That's what it is. That's what you need. Otherwise, you're just going to keep perpetuating the system that's going to keep, bankrupting people from, in their medical bills. So And that's just not what people can deal with any longer. We just can't deal with that kind of shit. So they do not have identical positions. That's ridiculous. She doesn't even believe in canceling medical debt. She doesn't, she doesn't want to end all the wars. She's in the past, she's had, she's kind of advocated for, I think it was, which company was it? Raytheon, I believe. Raytheon wanted to get like certain military industrial complex like deals and stuff. They wanted to, negotiate to like obviously get bigger defense contracting deals with the government, and she fought on behalf of Raytheon because Raytheon existed in her state of Massachusetts, in her home state of Massachusetts, where she's the senator. And this was a story from 2015. I think I may have talked about it before. I didn't quite know the details back then, and then I researched it and I figured out a little bit more. I can post the link for you guys in the description box if you guys are interested. But that's the problem, because that's not something Bernie Sanders has done. Now, that doesn't mean that Bernie Sanders is perfect when it comes to foreign policy, but when it comes to foreign policy, comparing the two on foreign policy, Bernie Sanders is a hell of a lot better on that, a hell of a lot better than her. And I mean, that's noticeable to anybody that's noticeable to anybody in the naked eye, from the naked eye. So Bernie also mentions how she calls herself, talks about how she's a capitalist, quote, capitalist to her bones. And he does not describe himself that way. Now, again, in the last segment, I was talking about how a capitalist system is, not something that, it's something that I've kind of realized is not, it's not obviously a good system. Now, I never really thought it was a good system until, I don't know. I think the more I was obviously getting into the prospect of supporting Bernie Sanders for president and learning more about what he's talking about. And that's not to say that I never supported Bernie Sanders. I've known about Bernie Sanders since at least 2010, if not earlier. Yeah, probably earlier than that. But as far as when it comes to the specifics of like economic issues and kind of getting a grasp on the details of what's happening regarding our system compared to other systems all over the all over the world, I recently started to understand how truly bad capitalism was when it comes to like looking into the specific details of it. And that's reading, the opinions of Marxists and communists and socialists and all that stuff. So, and those are the best critics of capitalism that you can find for sure. But yeah, so like Bernie Sanders doesn't describe himself that way. He calls himself a democratic socialist. Now Kyle Klinsky from Secular Talk believes that Bernie Sanders, even though he calls himself a democratic socialist, considers himself as more of a social democrat. Now that's Kyle's interpretation. That's the way he sees it. Now I don't think that's. I mean, if Bernie Sanders is an idiot, he knows what a social democratic system is. He knows what a democratic social system is. So if he calls himself a democratic socialist, I'm willing to believe him at his word. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think labels are kind of pointless. I care about the policies. The labels, for the most part, really don't mean anything. I just care about what the policies are. And Bernie Sanders' policies are, yeah, they're progressive. They're leftist, And those are, and they're things that the American people want. They're populist, economic populist. That's what he is. FDR style type politician when it comes to economics. So when it comes to, let's see the next part here. It says, so he explains how greed and corruption that exists in Washington and at the corporate elite level, where price fixing takes place among the drug companies, that's a big deal. And that's absolutely true. Anybody who's listened to Bernie Sanders, anybody who's looked into kind of the corruption and the greed that exists in our system knows all these things that exist, whether it's the big farm, whether it's the big insurance companies, big pharma, Wall Street, all that stuff. Greed is just at a ridiculous level right now. And the pay of CEOs compared to the pay of the workers is just like ridiculous amounts. It's total income inequality. This is something Bernie Sanders has been talking about forever and getting into, really honing in on and getting to the meat of it, and that's why he gets the support of all these progressives out there, let alone the people that I was, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Michael Moore, let alone everybody else out there. That's why he's getting their support, because he's truly tackling the issues that people care about and know that are serious issues, critical issues. He also talks about how fossil fuel companies are making billions of dollars in profit, where they also take part in destroying the planet. I mean, anybody who knows anything about climate change, anybody who knows anything about, let alone just the corporate elite and the corruption of the system, putting aside that even, but just the whole existence of fracking and oil drilling, all that stuff, whether it's fracking in the Arctic, whether it's fracking in, different parts of the other parts of the world, in this, obviously in the United States, Canada, when it comes to the different pipelines and stuff, so the Keystone XL pipeline and stuff, and all that stuff, these are things that are destroying our planet. The pollution of greenhouse gases from, the oil companies out there, putting emissions into the air, CO2s and everything, completely destroying our planet. That's even worse than what's happening regarding the power of the corporate elite who are obviously screwing everybody over, but they're also killing us too. So that's even a bigger issue. So when it comes to the actual health and wellness of regular people out there, they don't give a shit. Bernie Sanders and progressives like him, that are in office and that are in government, those are the only people that truly care. Bernie also points out how he doesn't believe in doing business as usual, and doing it the old-fashioned way is definitely not good enough, and talks about how we need more than regulation, but a political revolution. Again, this is one of those things that, for somebody that truly didn't understand the specific, the intricacies of the corrupt capitalist system, the greedy capitalist system, the for-profit capitalist system, in my mind, I figured, we just need to put more regulations. But at the end of the day, regulations are only going to take you so far. You need to have a political revolution that is going to blow up the system, but it's not going to blow up the system like in the way Donald Trump wants to do it. Donald Trump blew up, is the type that wants to blow up the system, but he's not an economic populist. He portrays himself that way. This is another thing that Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk has talked about a lot too. He talks about how I totally care about the regular people. I care about, all the people that are getting screwed over by, the terrible Democrats and stuff. In reality, the Republicans and the Democrats are taking part in screwing us over. So it's not just Democrats. Republicans are just as, if not more, if certainly more corrupt than the Democratic Party. They're both in cahoots. So it's like, the Republicans are 100% bought by the corporate elites, whereas Democrats are like 80 to 90%, right? So and it's only gotten worse. You ask people 20 years ago, it wasn't that bad. It's terrible now. Democrats are totally in the back pocket of the corporate elites and the cocktail. They're kind of hanging out with everybody on the cocktail circuit and just being all chummy with them and stuff, cozying up with those assholes, those rich elitist assholes. So yeah, it's and this is something that Bernie Sanders wants to put an end to, and the Democrats out there, they can't. Those Democratic corporate Democrats, they can't stand it because they don't want to have their taxes jacked up, because they want to keep living their elitist lifestyles and being rich and not God forbid forking over a little bit amount of money to pay their to pay their due, what they should be paying for people that are suffering. And Bernie also says that he's the only candidate running for president who will tell the corporate elite that we have had enough of your greed and corruption, and will put an end to it. So, that's just a piggybacking on what I already said. He's going to put an end to that. He's going to blow up the system. He's going to make sure these people understand that he is going to take them to the fucking cleaners. He is not going to let them get away with their greed. He is not going to let them get away with their corruption. And he is he's going to make them shake in their boots, and that's why they do not want Bernie Sanders as president. Now, when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, as I've talked about before on past podcasts, this is something that Elizabeth Warren, or people that thought about, this is what they thought about Elizabeth Warren, but not so much anymore, because she's cozying up with a lot of these, these CEOs of big national banks like Jamie Dimon, who's the head of JP Morgan Chase, and a couple of other people. And you can't trust Elizabeth Warren, because you don't know if she's going one way or another. You don't know if she's going left or right. Literally, you don't know if she's going to the left or the right. One second she's going one way, next second she's going another day. I talked about that when it came to the fact that one second she says, "Oh, I don't believe in unilateral disarmament in the general election. I believe in taking big money from donors, from all kinds of donors. It doesn't matter." But then all of a sudden she got the political pressure, and now she's not doing it anymore. That doesn't mean that she's doing a great thing, because her mindset is still that we can take money from the corporate elite, but she's not taking it. But she still supports the party taking it. And when the general election happens, the party is going to be spending money on ads and different political ads and different resources and stuff to help get her elected if she's president, which I hope she's not. But if she's elected, they're going to be using that for her, and the party is going to be mobilizing for her, using that corporate money that they make from all those fundraisers that I was talking about before. All that fundraiser money, they're going to use that for her if she's president, or whatever candidate's money. Hopefully Bernie Sanders. If Bernie Sanders is the candidate, the nominee, they're not going to be using that for him. He doesn't need that. All he needs is the people. He needs the grassroots movement. He doesn't need a bunch of the $1 million, the millions of dollars from the corporate donors and stuff. So after Bernie Sanders got pushback from Jonathan Karl, the interviewer, Bernie reiterates Warren calling herself a capitalist to her bones, and the reason he's not is because he won't tolerate the greed and corruption and income and wealth inequality along with so much suffering that's going on in the country. So yeah, that speaks for itself. He's going to keep getting pushback from this corporate mainstream media about how he wants to change the system, and these people can't stand that he wants to do that, and they're going to keep kind of poking and prodding him and making sure that he keeps repeating that, so that it hurts his chances in the primary, let alone the general election. What they do not know, what these mainstream media elites do not know, is that Bernie Sanders has so much support among the grassroots that the more they smear him and the more they put out his message of taking on the corporate elite, the more popular he becomes. They don't realize that, though. And they did the same exact thing with Donald Trump. When they were attacking Donald Trump in 2016, granted, a lot of the attacks against him were warranted, because they were just kind of putting out whatever things that he was saying, essentially. But when it came to just obsessing over Donald Trump and just attacking him for his mean tweets and cursing and shit like that, they didn't realize that they were making him look better. And that's exactly what they're doing with Bernie Sanders. Now, in this case, in 2020 compared to 2016, right now they're actually kind of ignoring him more. Because what they're doing right now in 2020 is they're focusing more on Elizabeth Warren, because they think, oh well, Elizabeth Warren is just like Bernie Sanders. So now they've created this narrative of trying to portray Bernie Sanders as the same as Elizabeth Warren. So apparently, they in their mind. Well, not apparently. They know in their mind that Bernie Sanders is more far to the left, but they're trying to say that Elizabeth Warren is just as far to the left, but she's a little bit more palatable because she doesn't yell, and she's not angry, and she sounds really, really nice, and she's got a nice calming voice and uses flowery rhetoric. Bernie Sanders does not do that, and the corporate elites, the MSM hacks, they want to put that message out there. They want to throw that fig leaf out there and get people to notice, oh yeah, that's true. Elizabeth Warren sounds much nicer and much more professorial, and the way she explains things are really, really nice, and she doesn't sound angry. That's basically what it is. And then finally, Jonathan Karl says that while Warren says she has a plan for everything, she doesn't have a plan for healthcare, while Bernie says he does, and it's Medicare-for-all. This question, however, contradicts the whole premise that Bernie and Warren have the same policy beliefs. So what happened? If you're constantly talking about how Elizabeth Warren is so much like Bernie Sanders, what happened to the fact that even this guy, who he said it himself, he says, "Oh, you guys are so similar. You're pretty close." He said, "quote, pretty close to identical positions on big issues." What happened? So you just admitted that he doesn't have the same that her position on Medicare-for-all is not the same as his. And I guarantee you, she's putting out a position she's going to be putting out a position on her healthcare plan soon. Guarantee you, it's not going to be Medicare-for-all. No way. She's going to be putting out some sort of like milquetoast version of it, and I'm going to make sure to cover that for you guys too. But she's going to put out some milquetoast version of it that's not going to be even close to what he has been pushing for, guaranteed. But yeah, this totally contradicts the whole premise that from the media types who talk about how they're the same, because as I've explained, he's pushing for, he's pushing for a Medicare-for-all system. She's talking about, different paths, quote unquote, different paths. And then, he's pushing to get rid of $1.6 trillion of medical debt. Student debt. She says she's in favor of 600 or 800 billion. That's not enough. That's not even close to enough. And, he's the only one that wants to get wipe out all medical debt. She does not want to wipe out medical debt. So that's a problem, bro. That's not the same thing. Elizabeth Warren is not a progressive. So let's put an end to that notion, please, because it's bullshit. And anybody that says that either is ignorant or is just lying on behalf of Elizabeth Warren just so they can portray her as lefty and leftist when she's not. So just a couple more details on Elizabeth Warren. As I said before, she believes in capitalism and wants to regulate the markets so as to better compete, so those markets can better compete with one another. So if you've studied economics, you've studied, the different types of economic systems out there, that's a pretty, kind of rudimentary, elementary explanation of how the capitalist system works. It's just different markets competing against each other. That's what she wants. She believes in competition. You ask her supporters, they say, I believe in competition, I believe in markets. So they clearly don't believe in any kind of socialized system, and that's fine. That's their thing. They can believe in that. But don't tell me that that's a better system than the system that is going to put an end to the corruption. Because like I said before, you regulate capitalism, that's not going to be enough. You need to go a hell of a lot further than just regulating something. You want to put, it's almost like putting handcuffs on a person behind their back or even in front of them and, just giving them the key or just not giving them the key. In general, just giving that person the opportunity to just be able to have just as much, ability to do what they can do, but not as much. You know what I'm saying? That's the whole idea of regulation. So yeah, just put the person in their handcuffs, just put it to them in the front, and then they can just still do what they want to do. They can still do what they want to do. They just can't do it as much. That's not a good system. Sorry. So when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, her wealth tax only wants to tax people 2% after their first $50 million. And then she claims that this will fund all kinds of the social programs that she's advocating for. 2% over $50 million. Now, for those of you guys who do not know what that means that every dollar above $50 million, she's going to take 2 cents of that. So what does that mean? That means that all the people that are making $49 million, $50 million and below, essentially, $49.9 million and below, those people are all going to be able to keep their millions. They're going to keep, they're going to stay rich. They're going to stay wealthy. They're going to keep making fucking dough. They're not going to be going even close to going broke, Now, I'm not saying that, obviously, that you, it's bad that, you obviously, it's good that she is taxing people at some point. But as I've said in past podcasts, I believe I said it last time, she should be, if you're truly pushing for something like a wealth tax, you need to be putting it for wealth that's over 10 million. I'm sorry, after 10 million, not 50 million. Bernie Sanders is after 32 million. So even Bernie Sanders' plan is not good. And his is 32 million after 1. So 1% after 30. So 1% wealth tax on people after the first 32 million. That's not enough. It needs to be a hell of a lot more than that, And I don't know, I was hoping Bernie Sanders would be a lot better on this when it comes to the wealth tax, but unfortunately he's not too great on it either. So that's something that he definitely needs to fix, and progressives like myself and others have to definitely call him out for sure. So, as I said before, Elizabeth Warren has not fully embraced Medicare for all. She's talked about, she's talked about different paths, and even though she says she supports it, she's talked about the whole different paths thing, and there's different ways that we can get to it, blah 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 blah. So yeah, she's a total waffler when it comes to these kind of things. She can never stick to one thing. She always wants to do what's politically convenient. But in the meantime, she also puts forth the rhetoric that is just it's progressive sounding, and it's progressive in its flowery rhetoric, but it's not actually progressive. So, yeah, I just don't trust her when it comes to Medicare for all. That's probably one of the worst issues, because she pretends to be progressive when she's not even remotely progressive. So she is also advocating, and I think this is a plan. Yeah, this is a plan that recently came out. I think it was the Capitalism Accountability Act or something. It was some sort of bill she proposed in the Senate, and then she's going to probably use this as her policy. If she, as her, essentially her idea for cracking down on corporate capitalism, corrupt capitalism. So she is advocating to hold capitalism, quote, accountable by requiring workers to elect 40% of people on their board, restricting stock sales of board and company executives, and requiring 75% of executives and shareholders approval for political expenditures. So, first of all, the 40% of people on the board to be workers, that's not enough. That needs to be like 90. Not even 90. Well, not even 90. But I would say, if you want, I would say somewhere 90 is the highest. I would say like more like 50. Like 40% is not enough. That's like a milk toast, centrist number right there. That needs to be a hell of a lot higher. So honestly, I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if it would be 90%. 90% would be actually better, because at least with 90%, you're representing the workers. And then, so at lowest 50%, because at least with 50, if it's 50%, then it's like, it's half the people. So it's 50-50. But it should be at least 90% when it comes to the people that are on the board, because those are the people that are working for the company. They're the ones who are making the company profit. Those are the people that are making the company what they are, and you're not even putting them on the board. That's ridiculous. So you just stack them a bunch of full of executives, fucking, elitist assholes who are just making decisions that are continuing to give the workers lesser pay, and not allowing them to be part of a union and stuff like that. That's fucked up, man. I don't know how these people think that that's the solution. Elizabeth Warren is just totally clueless. She's got her head up her ass on this one. So, and then restricting the stock sales of board and company executives. So how are you going to do that? Restricting stock sales? So what do you what does that even mean? So it's such a vague term, kind of term, or kind of idea. It's like you're not even, like, I don't know what the details of that are, but like, how are you going to restrict their stock sales? Like, I mean, I don't know. That's who knows? Maybe that's just, from what I can see, that's probably one of the less shitty ones, because I don't know the details of it. And the last one is requiring 75% of executives and shareholders approval for political expenditures. So when it comes to giving money to different politicians, it says restricting stock sales. I'm sorry, I read that one already. Requiring 75% of executives and shareholders approval. 75%. Okay, so how about just not? How about just not letting them? Letting the executives and shareholders to give political expenditures. How about these CEOs and corporate executives? How about they not be allowed to corrupt our system with their big money? But with Elizabeth Warren, she wants to get 75% approval from these people, from those executives and shareholders. So, I mean, but that's the thing. She's pushing for these things that are just, it's like this, everything is a compromise. Everything is a compromise position. You're not holding their boot. You're not holding the boot on their neck. You're just letting them constantly just chip away at, still screwing people over, but just not as much. Just the same analogy that I used about the handcuffs. You put the handcuffs on them, and you don't let them go that far, but just far enough that's going to be, that'll still give them some form of power. That's not fair. And I can't support that. So, again, she's just giving these ridiculous policy ideas that no decent person can support. So, and finally, she also wants to tax excessive lobbying, quote unquote, instead of completely putting an end to lobbying, which would massively affect our political system. So instead of just putting an end to lobbying, where these corporate lobbyists and people, go out and try and get politicians to sell out, she wants to tax lobbying. So if if there's a lobbyist that goes out there and tries to, tries to round up a bunch of politicians to do what they want. She wants to tax those people. So why can't you just get rid of them? See, I don't get that. Again, she just doesn't get it. She's pushing she's doing all this stuff that is just not going far enough. She definitely thinks she's going far enough. Guaranteed. She thinks like, oh yeah, these are totally wonderful ideas. But again, just like Joe Biden, she's getting ideas from her clueless advisors and consultants to do these, half-measure type things, which she's done on Medicare-for-all, just as I explained, with the whole different paths thing. I'm going to be getting into a detail regarding her Medicare-for-all position too. But yeah, everything is a half measure with Elizabeth Warren. She should be called Half Measure Liz, because that's what she pushes for. Everything is half measure. Just push for the ultimate thing instead of trying to cater to the corporate elites out there. Bernie Sanders is not going to do that. Bernie Sanders is not, Bernie Sanders is punching everybody in the throat. He's not going to be playing patty cakes with them, And Elizabeth Warren, with her flowery rhetoric and nice, soft, sing-songy voice, she wants to, in her folksy personality, she wants to go out there and just play patty cakes with everybody. And Bernie Sanders is not like that, which is exactly why, nobody is trying to quell the fear that the corporate executives have of Bernie Sanders. They're trying to do that with Elizabeth Warren, as I covered with Jim Cramer from CNBC. Jim Cramer for CNBC says, "Oh, I need to make everybody think that Elizabeth Warren isn't really that bad." When in reality, Elizabeth Warren isn't that bad. So a CNBC host, CNBC is the network that basically does the kind of stands up for the Wall Street, the Wall Street crowd and the, big bank executives out there, corporate executives. And he's a guy that says he's fawning over Elizabeth Warren and saying how she's a wonderful woman. And she's not, basically saying that she's not going to be doing anything to threaten the system. And I want to make sure that everybody thinks, nice things about her. Okay, well, thanks a lot, bro. That's not going to help out the, rest of the country. It's just going to help out your corporate elite friends on Wall Street. And that's not what we need. We need Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren is not doing it, is not enough for majority of Americans out there. They may think she is, and they may think she's as liberal or progressive as Bernie, but she's not. And the more people find out about her, the more she's going to be exposed for who she truly is.